And in front of me is Harry Yagi in the Mormon Meteor, the wonderful Duesenberg land
Very
speed
famous
record car.
Crazy car.
But he's not driving fast enough. So I pass him on the Pacific Coast Highway in my 1916 Packard. I thought, that was really not the smartest thing in the world to do.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Smoking Tire Podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Off the Record. We love Off the Record here at the Smoking Tire. In fact, I just heard from a friend of mine who used Off the Record. Totally dismissed ticket up in Northern California. Off the Record seems to have a very good track record of making things go away up in Northern California. Basically, the way it works is if you get a ticket, don't plead guilty. Get Off the Record. Go to offtherecord.com/TST or use code TSTPOD on that Off the Record app, and they will arrange an attorney to fight that ticket on your behalf. No dealing with the prosecutor, no appearing in court, none of that. And their track record is fantastic of getting rid of those tickets. Tickets on your record can affect your insurance, can affect your employment, can mess up your life in a variety of frustrating and annoying and expensive ways. Don't deal with that. Get Off the Record. Go to offtherecord.com/TST or use code TST10 on the Off the Record app. Do it now. Have it in your pocket. That way, if you get pulled over, you're not panicked because you know you've got Off the Record. All right, on this show, recorded in front of a small but dedicated studio audience at the Audrain Automotive Museum in Newport, Rhode Island, we've got Donald Osborne with us. We have completed the Audrain's veteran car tour. That's most definitely not a race. I assure you, it is not a race. We're talking about real old weird cars with our pal Donald. He is the director of the Audrain Automotive Museum. He's been on Jay Leno's Garage. He's been on Chasing Classic Cars. He's had his own show. He is a very fashionable and very smart gearhead who knows all kinds of weird stuff about all kinds of weird old cars. Live from the Audrain in Newport, Rhode Island, an amazing museum worth your time. It's Donald Osborne on the Smoking Tire Podcast. There's no like grand entrance. You know, we're not going to come out from behind a curtain. We could
drop a curtain.
We're just going to sit here.
We could drop a curtain.
Yeah, and at some point it'll be recorded, and you won't know when it is. But it's now.
We normally do fireworks.
But it's now.
But they said no.
Yeah.
They wouldn't let us do pyro in the Audrain Museum.
You know,
I thought this was America.
It used to be. Not anymore. Not anymore. No.
Newport. This is the part of America that's really just England.
It is. It's ancient America.
It's one might say new.
It is ancient America.
It is.
Come on, yeah.
What's the oldest building in Newport?
The oldest building in Newport is actually a house, which is in the northern end of town, which is a 17th century house. Newport, of course, was founded in the 17th century, one of the few cities in America that was.
Yeah.
And there's just a few pieces of 17th century architecture still left in Newport.
I like walking around downtown and seeing the houses where it's like, 1705 or whatever. We ate in a restaurant from the 1700s last night. I figure if a restaurant,
You go to the White Horse Tavern?
We went down on Bowen's Wharf. Black
Yes.
Pearl. Love the Black Pearl.
Exactly.
Love it. I figured if a restaurant's been open for 300 years, they probably haven't given too many people food poisoning.
Well, they
Right?
they bring in new oysters every 100 years.
Oh, God.
Whether they need them or not.
Man, that clam chowder though.
Yeah, well.
That's good.
It is legendary.
All right. Well,
good reason.
The sound is checked. We are here. And thank you to our small studio audience at the Audrain Museum. I could count every one of you. It is what happens when you do a live show on a Monday. We don't get you don't draw the crowds.
These are people that don't work for a living.
Right.
Much like us.
Raise your hand if you have a job. And that's more than I would have thought. That's at least 30% of you.
I didn't raise my hand, you notice.
No, just like Wayne Carini the other day. You guys don't work for a living, do you?
We enjoy what we do so much. We get to indulge our passion on a daily basis and become remunerated for it. Come on. Does it get better than that?
They keep telling me that. I wonder when it's going to happen. Thanks for having us out here this weekend, Donald.
Thank you for coming back to Newport.
Yeah. Were you unsure if it was going to happen after our first experience?
Well, there are two things. After your first experience, when you had to basically walk your car from Newport to Bristol and back. And then the second year when you simply said, I'm sorry, I'm busy, I can't show up. And I thought, well, that's probably because you had to walk your car from Newport to Bristol, Newport. And then when I asked again, you said, sure, we'd love to come back. I thought, they're just kidding me.
No. I said, but there was an asterisk. I'd love to come back. I want a fast car. That's what it was. And we actually have come up, Zach just came up with, before this, new conditions for next year.
New idea. Two cars.
We want 2 cars.
Because I think it'd be a good video for us to have different experiences. And then we film that and the video. It's like the A and B story.
And we definitely won't race the cars. No way.
It's amazing
not racing the cars.
You went directly into my head because, of course, I know that you are, in fact, lying. Because this is the Audrain Motorsport Veteran Car Tour. Not run or race.
Trophy.
It's a tour.
Exactly. Yes. And I know there's a bit of aggressive driving on the roads. Once you discovered that your 1902 Yale actually had a turn of speed, you thought, ooh, let's take advantage of this.
It wasn't aggressive. Your car, we knew, was having some trouble on this gentle hill, so we passed to give you room. Now, it might appear that we started to make that acceleration to pass you far before we knew your car was breaking down, but that's hearsay.
Was it when I said, suck my wind, Osborne? Is that when you knew that we were really getting into the spirit of it?
Yeah, I think so. And you see all these wonderful vintage photographs of the people racing cars at the turn of the century, and you see them leaning into the car, into turns, and we saw you willing the car ahead.
Yeah.
Like, come on.
I was doing the hop like you do when you're starting a go-kart race. You know that one? You guys ever do that one? You got to get the go-kart going. You got like this. But it works. It worked in the Yale. We also, there was a lot of leaning. You have to, I mean, it was like bobsled level,
Yeah,
leaning.
it could be placebo effect, but I felt safer doing it.
It is a very interesting thing. We discussed this a little yesterday. But you realize, of course, that all of these cars that we drove yesterday were designed and built for a time when there weren't roads.
Right, or other cars.
Exactly. So they were designed to sort of weave on the ruts that you would find in the dirt and mud roads. So when you drive them on asphalt and you drive them quickly on asphalt, then you quickly discover what body roll actually is.
Mm-hmm. It's a little too sharp. The one-to-one steering ratio is very aggressive, and the tire, bicycle kind of tires, and very high center of gravity.
Exactly.
And the lateral support of the seats is not so much, and it's an adventure.
Oh, that's right. We took out the sport seats before we gave
Didn't
you
have the carbon buckets.
Actually,
they were pretty good.
I say that. Meanwhile, the seats actually do hold you in pretty good, but that comes into play because you have to consider, if I have to bail, if I have to jump, can I rapidly do so?
Well, and that's the thing that I love about veteran motoring is the fact that you are always involved in the process of proceeding. So you get to read the hills, you get to, they tell you when you drive a modern car, you should always have a plan of escape, like you do on a racetrack. Okay, if this person does that, do I have room to go over there? Is there a lane? Is there a shoulder? And you think about that all the time in the veteran car.
In the veteran car, the plan of escape isn't the car in the lane. It's you from the car.
Yeah.
It's a very different plan of escape that you're talking about.
You're very involved in the drive because you're paying so much attention to whether or not you should stay in the car in that moment.
Well, exactly. And you also didn't have, we won't talk about that. Oftentimes, it's happened that people enjoy the joy of fires in veteran cars as well. And so you have to figure out whether I can go faster to put the fire out or whether I should slow down and get out of the car so that the car can be consumed by the fire. And, one of the great moments, of course, starting all these cars, you have to prime the carburetors. Actually, not priming the cylinders. And so it's always great because you see people with a gas can just sort of pouring gas, and there's gas going everywhere. So, that's okay. It doesn't matter. It's all right. And then there's the oil that's next to the gas, and you think, how many combustible things can we put in a wooden-bodied car?
Yeah, I mean, and steam cars are literally on fire.
Yeah.
And that's normal. That's a
Correct.
normal. And
if your steam car is not on fire, you are not progressing.
Yeah, it's turned off.
Yeah.
If it's not on fire, that's just parked. But we had this 1902 Yale that we drove, which is a car nobody's ever heard of. Mm-hmm. Absolute SEO death on the internet. No one is searching for information about this car. There's one Wikipedia page about it. It's about 4 sentences long.
Yes, needs some amplification.
Right.
Now you can actually contribute
We will
to that page.
we will be the resource for 1902 Yale. It's 16 horsepower, boxer twin, 200 cubic inch, 1,800 pounds, 2 forward gears, 1 reverse. If you can call it a reverse gear.
Oh, it's a reverse gear.
It's a reverse.
Absolutely.
It's kind of a reverse gear. Sure. And London to Brighton veteran, which means it's actually one of the valuable ones because it qualifies.
Correct. Pre-1904.
Yeah, and it does 40 miles an hour. We did a GPS verified 40 miles an hour in it.
Flat ground.
Which, yeah, definitely flat ground, which was actually more stable than I would have thought.
Well, you know that wonderful hill very near at the beginning of the rally when we go down by the beach?
Oh, yeah. The curve with the curve
exactly.
in it.
You could easily hit 60 on that down.
Dead man's curve.
Dead man's curve, exactly.
Yeah, that's where you contemplate the jump.
What I love about that, though, is that you've got an escape road. Because if you don't think you can make the turn, you can just go straight ahead.
You can, yes. You can go straight off. It's actually not the left hand down the hill that's the problem.
Right.
It's the right hand corner at the bottom where you might have a little Scandi flick into roll that is really, really sketchy. We made a pass there.
Of course you did.
I want something with a little bit lower center of gravity if I'm going to kind of bobsled it down the hill for 60 miles per hour.
Yeah, you have to sort of wait till around, 1920 or so.
Yeah.
But the other thing about the Yale, which is so wonderful, you outlined the specs of the Yale. And what I love about veteran cars, and you saw this so graphically as the cars were all lined up for the start, the fact that technology was moving along so quickly that you had simultaneously on the market that Yale and a Curve Dash Old, which I took you for a ride in,
which was
2 years
way
ago.
faster than I expected it to be, but with a tiller. When you're going tiller, we're in a different era.
Don't sneeze.
Entirely with the tiller. The 1900. Well, it was
1904.
01 to 04.
It was 01
I think,
to 04.
Right?
We had two 04s.
It was a range. Yeah.
We had 2 04s and an 02.
Yeah, and we passed all of them in the Yale on the way back. But as you go from Curve Dash Olds, same time was we're driving the Yale, which has a steering wheel and a brake traditional pedals. Mm-hmm. Then you go to like the stuff like the Winton, and which are big, luxurious touring cars with actual coachwork, doors that open and
the door feature, yes.
Yeah, and it's all within a span of about 8 years. It's really, really wild how fast this stuff was moving, how non-standardized it was. People were just doing whatever. And
of course, one of the stars of the tour was that 1905 Fiat.
Yeah.
That thing was nuts.
60 horsepower, 10.5 liter 4-cylinder engine. I mean, wow.
It sounded like the end of the world. And when Evan, the restoration gentleman, smashed the throttle right here on Bellevue, the thing took off like a Hellcat. And they were telling us, so this car was $18,000 in 1905. Which is $1.7 million today. This is like, it was like a Veyron of that era. Really interesting car.
But it also had, unlike a Veyron, it had 2 rows of seats. And the rear seat to me was this huge, wide, bolstered, it could be a restaurant booth.
Yeah.
It was like having a bleacher behind a race car so that the owner can watch the racers race.
And that's what's so amazing about those cars. Is the fact that car was a land speed record car with a racer body on it, and then that touring body was put on after its racing career.
Okay, that makes more sense.
Oh, I didn't know that. Yeah, okay.
But it is today's something, again, incomprehensible. It's as if you took a car which won in the prototype class at Le Mans and then put a Mercedes S-Class body, exactly, with picnic tables in the back, and off you go.
I smell a project. That sounds like a good time.
It's kind of like the Koenigsegg Gemera. That's kind of what that is.
But I guess, yeah. But if we, the first year, our car went 6 miles an hour. That's what it would do. The car, unfortunately, it wasn't running right, and it would only idle. If you tried to go above idle, it would die. Now, fortunately, it had like a 300 cubic inch single cylinder or something. So it would idle at 6, and you could drive.
You could drive
it on idle, and you would eventually get there.
As you did.
As we did, dead last. And it took so long, that we just thought, this is what the event is. Now, our car this time went the normal speed, like the speed that you would do it in this car, in a regular car. And we learned that the lunch break is actually quite leisurely.
I was going to say, it was such a shock to see you and Zach at lunch and relaxing.
Absolutely relaxed. And actually, by the end of, these cars... what I was telling your guys on the Audrain podcast earlier today was that what I love about the veteran cars so much is that if you drive a lot of cars, even if the cars are different in their handling, in their whatever, you're still turning a wheel, moving a shifter. You don't have to relearn how to drive, right? To go from a Subaru to a McLaren, you're driving.
The process is the same.
But I like, it's good that we're in the museum right now with a lot of these right-hand drive cars, because you do have to relearn how to drive a little bit when you're shifting with your other hand and you're looking at mirrors and that's a fun novelty.
And not putting your windshield wipers on when you want to make a turn.
Yeah.
Yeah, we all do that.
Yep. And so the next evolution of that is these veteran cars where every control is in a different place.
And it's a funny thing, too, because people often remark on how difficult these machines are to operate, and you realize that they weren't difficult to operate because no one had driven a car before.
Right.
So you're simply learning to operate this machine. This is how you operate this machine. And we accept that in other things, in electronics and in lots of other things, but we don't accept it for cars. Cars have to be standardized for us to be happy with them.
Well, there's a lot at stake in a car, and more so than in a new phone or something. But they're not hard, actually. They just require a little bit of brain power that we're not used to committing to that thing. But if you love cars, and if you crave new experiences, and if you like learning about cars, then I think training your brain on a new type of system called driving, that's still somehow called driving, is an amazing novelty to experience. And one that, particularly when the car can go a reasonable speed, 30 or 40 miles an hour, we found by the end of the tour, when we came back down to Newport and we're cruising on Ocean, we're having conversations about stuff that have nothing to do with the car, and I'm just driving. And I'm not now. I've been doing it for 3 hours. I'm no longer thinking about the mechanics of it. I'm just driving. Get used to it.
You're just driving, but it's something that one of my brothers is a pilot. And I've never gone up with him because I don't trust him. But and he said to me once that flying for him was like the ultimate in meditation in terms of focus.
Right.
He said you could think of nothing else but flying, but you forgot everything else in the world.
Right.
And that's the way I feel when I drive a veteran car.
Yeah.
You are so present in that moment. It's not as if you can't have a conversation. Once you realize, okay, I just simply have to pay attention to, there's a grade coming up, so let me give it a little more throttle so I've got a run up that hill so I don't run out of gear in the middle of it, which is sort of slightly unpleasant.
There's a great book I love called The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, which I really recommend, and it talks a lot about the overactive mind and how to calm the overactive mind. And a lot of people who get into motorcycling, skiing, scuba diving, flying, things that require your focus. It's a very effective way to calm your mind and narrow it on one thing. And the veteran car is that thing, but only for a little while, because you get used to it and things come at you slowly.
Until someone in a modern motor decides, I'm sitting in a side street and there's this car coming, but surely I can get out in front of him and he'll stop.
Right. Ooh, yeah. I will say the only part of yesterday's veteran car tour that wasn't fun was the 10 minutes we had to drive down the 2-lane road each way.
Down East Main Road, yeah.
All the rest of it was great. Ocean Drive, great. Whatever that road that winds through the farms on the east side of the island, great.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah, Middle Road. Yeah.
All of that is great. But that 2-lane each way... We're going to have to cut that one out, Donald. I don't like that road.
Well, that's the...
you got Super Duty coming by you, and you're like, death is near.
Well, the funniest thing about this is, of course, contrasting your experience with the first tour, you did not mention at all the Bristol Bridge.
Because
is
the Bristol
normally
Bridge
the
was a
frightening thing.
non-issue in the Yale. We went up and over that bridge at
the
30
speed
miles an
limit.
hour.
Yep.
It was phenomenal. It was
Yes.
the new Mount Hope Bridge.
Mount Hope Bridge.
They got we went up that bridge so fast that I was talking about the tarmac stinks on this bridge. At 6 you don't notice these things, but at 30 you really notice the potholes. They are not good.
And that's where the suspension compliance actually makes it good.
Yeah.
But you feel like you're in a boat all of a sudden because you're doing this.
Yeah.
Well, we had it in sport mode, so it felt a little bit stiffer.
Ah,
but
yes.
That was the
Right.
bumpiest road of the whole drive.
It was. But
when did they stop putting tillers in cars? When did everyone go, oh, the wheel?
was the Curve Dash the last tiller car?
No, there were tiller cars after the Curve Dash. And it was a very funny thing, too, because a lot of drivers who, of course, remember, they're coming from horses and wagons, preferred tillers. They thought it was a more secure way of controlling than a wheel, because you had to, again, get used to the ratio of the wheel. How much did you turn the wheel relating to the turning of the wheels? The tiller is direct. So it's just like handling the reins. So
This is a great conversation for Newport. A lot of sailors in the room.
Exactly.
Do we have any sailors in the room? Do you like it? Of course you do. Old man of the sea up front. Do you like a tiller? Ever, I like a tiller on a sailboat, especially like a giant sailboat with a tiller. Love it. Yeah.
But of course, with the sailboat, it's exactly backwards.
Yes.
So it's like no. Oh, I'll ask you a question. Are you an expert trailer driver?
Expert? No, but I could do it.
I mean, I can go forward with it.
I can do it.
Backing up is challenging.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People who like tillers on sailboats are people who are great at backing up trailers.
Yeah.
That whole sort of
I've seen enough
contrary
videos of
motion.
people dropping their boats in the water incorrectly that I think you are wrong about that.
Yeah.
I think there are some people that own a boat and can't back up for nothing.
Qualified captain. Shout out to him.
Exactly.
So what was the last tiller car? Do you know?
Guys, got to take a quick break from the action for Factor. We love Factor, and the summer is coming. Fuel up for that summer with Factor's no prep, no mess meals. Whether it's meeting your wellness or fitness goals in time, whether it's making smarter choices with options like the Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, or Keto meals, Factor's fresh, never frozen meals are dietitian approved, ready to eat in just 2 minutes, no matter how busy you are. You'll always have time to enjoy nutritious, great tasting meals. As I've said a million times, my biggest problem with eating is actually not that I'm eating like candy or desserts or any of those unhealthy things. It's that I don't make time in my schedule to eat. I fill my day up with work, filming, podcasts, running business, whatever, and then I don't eat, and then I get starving, I get so hungry, and then I make unhealthy choices. I eat whatever's close to me, whatever's easy to get, or something that's unhealthy even when I should be making a healthier choice. Factor is the solution to that problem. By having these meals delivered to the studio, I keep them in the fridge, they're ready to go. At the first sign of hunger, boom, 2 minutes later, I'm eating that Factor meal. I like the Protein Plus stuff, but they've got 35 different meals and more than 60 add-ons to choose from every week. You can pause or change your plan if you've got to travel or you've got more people you want to feed, keeping the kitchen time to a minimum because everything's ready in 2 minutes. There's no shopping, prep, cooking, or cleanup. So head over to factormeals.com/tire50. That's factormeals.com/tire50 and use code TIRE50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month. That's code TIRE50 at factormeals.com/tire50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month while your subscription is active. We're also sponsored today by Auto Tempest. Love the Auto Tempest because when you're looking for a car, you want to cast that wide net and check as many places as possible. But that can be time-consuming, frustrating, particularly with the fact that like Google search is like a complete disaster now. So Auto Tempest is here, making it easy. Bring us together listings from all the top online sites like Cars.com, TrueCar, eBay Motors, Carvana, and so many more so you can get them all in one place rather than having to search a bunch of sites separately. When we're looking to talk about a market for a car, Auto Tempest is it.
right? It's not a ton of work to put these things together and see what's for sale all over the country, even letting you compare with Facebook Marketplace and Craigslist nationwide, not just in your local area. Auto Tempest now has apps for iOS and Android, so you can use the website or have Auto Tempest right on the home screen of your smartphone. Auto Tempest has all the cars in one search, so head over to autotempest.com/tire right now so they know that we sent you. That's autotempest.com/tire and start searching for your next car today. Now, back to the show.
The last Tiller car, I do not know which exactly it was, but they did not build Tiller cars after World War I.
How about them little garbage things they rent down by the marina here with the motorcycle handlebars? They look like little bumper cars.
Let me just have a little rant. They may run me out of town.
2024.
But
what are those things? What are they called? They're not gone. I saw a fleet of them down there yesterday.
They're back for the season.
They're absolutely not gone.
They are.
We saw someone driving one yesterday.
Scooters, and they're. It's like when people go on vacation and stay at a B&B, and the B&B has bicycles. They say, oh, let's take the bicycles out. They haven't been on a bicycle for 40 years, but they're going to get on the bicycle and ride through traffic in town.
Yeah.
These are people who have never ridden a scooter in their lives. They have no idea of what traffic is, and all of a sudden they are in these things that just block traffic and cause mayhem and havoc.
They're no good. Oh, what's it? It's called the Scoot Coupe.
Scooter Coupe.
Yikes.
Yeah, it's...
Don't just don't.
After you're 6 years old, you don't need a bright plastic vehicle.
Yeah, it's a Power Wheels for adults.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
And it's not cheap. It's $60 an hour.
An hour?
$60 an hour to sit in traffic in a Power Wheels.
No, thank you.
Yeah, I think not. But going from the ridiculous to the sublime, I am also extremely happy that you came back, and also extremely gratified that my master plan once again has claimed another victim. Because everybody thinks, oh, who can drive those strange old cars? It's like, this is horrible. And
you can.
Matt and Zach had a slightly less than wonderful experience the first time, but this time with a little power and, oh, this is sort of interesting, and I wonder what kind of car I might like. I fell madly in love with veteran cars about 10 years ago, and now I am obsessed by them.
It is the most engaging that driving can be. Period. Period. There is no way to better.
More than racing or like Pike Peak Hill Climb, something like that?
Okay, fine. Racing. Wheel to wheel actual racing, yes. Which this most definitely isn't, except it kind of is.
Well,
but
actually, I think they have a lot in common because, again, it's just about what you were talking about before. It's about focus and control.
Yeah,
definitely.
You have to be mindful at every moment on the racetrack if there's somebody next to you.
Yeah,
and in a veteran car.
It's completely unpretentious. Everybody loves it. There's not, when you're driving a veteran car, it doesn't matter if it's a Rolls Royce or a Ford or something no one's ever heard of. To the people on the side of the road, they're all the same thing.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
There's no status anymore.
The value range in the cars in the Tour ranged from $18,000 to over $4 million, and it didn't matter.
Yeah,
everybody's out there having fun
public,
in their cars.
It looks like, I don't know, kind of a cartoon thing. Everything has bright gold work on it. Everything's made of wood. Most of them had pretty good paint, and if they didn't, it's because they were a race car, and they all make weird sounds.
Original, like that 1896 Morse.
What car was $4 million?
I will not say.
Was the Fiat $4 million?
I will not say, because I am.
Is it what I would expect?
Well, it was $2 million when it was new.
Exactly. It's held its value pretty well.
Yeah.
The Kelly Blue Book on the
$12.
As an accredited appraiser, of course, if I give you a figure connected with a car, I have performed an appraisal, which I must have a work file and all that, so I could get nailed. But
that's an easy out.
I slip you $100.
Like
will you
that
appraise
out.
my M3 for like $52?
$50, certainly.
$2,000. Let's just bump it up a little bit.
But I think the spread is amazing.
Yeah.
And once they're all out, once they're on the value of the car doesn't really matter anymore.
Correct.
I mean, the people you talk to these people, you're on the same level. It's just a pure
appreciation of engineering. And because there were no standards, because every company was just kind of winging it. I mean, not like saying that they
Every
didn't.
man that was creating a car was winging it.
They weren't talking to each other. They were all here. You're in a shed over here, and you're in a shed 4,000 miles away. No one's sharing information, so everyone's trying to get to the same place, but a totally different way of doing it. And so it offers these opportunities to walk down the line and just go. I mean, something as simple as, what does an engine block look like? What does a cylinder look like? Right. What does a carburetor look like?
And where do we put those components?
And such wildly different solutions to how do I get fuel and air into a thing and then turn that into rotation.
Right.
Like they're clearly not sharing any knowledge with each other.
Well,
There's no accepted way to do it.
There are two things going on. One is the fact that a lot of people are assembling cars from other people's parts. I mean, De Dion and Benz were selling motors to everybody who would buy one. And then you were probably a bicycle maker or a wagon maker, so you knew how to make a frame. And then you had a friend that made carriages, so he made a body for you. And you bought headlights.
Yeah.
Beyond that, it was how you put it together.
Which I looked at the lights, on this trip more intently. Those were just to notify pedestrians that you were coming, right? Those don't illuminate anything.
Well, yes and no. There are two things that have to be remembered. One, again, the technology in headlights was also advancing rapidly. You have little oil lamps on some of the late 19th century cars, early 20th century cars. The Ford I was driving, the 1907 Ford, had acetylene headlights, which put out an amazing amount of light for the time. Remember, you didn't have the light pollution that you had now.
Right. Yeah.
So everything was much darker. So
we actually noticed that driving from the Providence airport to our hotel at 2:00 in the morning. We're like, man, this is different from LA. It is dark out here. Yes. But yes, they did not have the light pollution.
Yeah. But yes, in general, they were more positioning lights so that people knew that something was coming.
Right.
Rather than you projecting light out into the road. A lot of people didn't drive at night, first and foremost. But
they were drunk. Sun goes down. These people are getting wasted, particularly in Newport.
Well,
high
especially
society
in Newport.
here
Exactly.
at Bellevue Avenue.
Yeah, well, that's why the casino restaurant opened up in 1888.
Was that an actual casino, like a gambling casino, or
no,
is just that's a
casino
different
as
use of the
in
word?
Games, exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
So, yeah.
Are you able to work on your old veteran car? Because like the driving is one experience, but we saw the attrition rate was rather high. And
it's actually rather low considering the number of cars. A lot of people broke down, but then got going again.
How many finished? I guess we may have left.
All but 4 cars finished.
Oh, okay.
All right.
All but 4 cars
We
finished.
thought it was
I was
worse
one of
than
them that didn't finish, unfortunately. But all but 4 cars finished. And to answer your question, the answer is yes and no. It depends on what I'm wearing. Because you don't want to get it dirty. I mean,
great answer.
Got
Your mechanical knowledge is directly dependent on your outfit.
Precisely.
As it should be.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And well, the tie generally doesn't get in the way of the oily bits, and if it does, you're in real trouble.
His strategy. What we were most impressed with about Donald's outfit yesterday was that his hat stayed on. I mean, that hat must have been glued on your head because we were going 30 mile an hour, and you've got what's the name of that hat? What kind of hat?
It's a oh god, I just went totally brain dead. It's a fedora.
Right. Yeah. It should have left your
Flown
head
off
and did not.
But I realized that the fedora is shaped like a 80s F1 car. The front is down, the back is up.
You've got downforce.
Yeah, you've got downforce.
Exactly.
Yeah. A lot of thought went into that.
The funniest thing about that hat is that it's one of my favorite hats. I bought it 1,000 years ago at a resale shop somewhere, and it's actually slightly too small.
That's
which
the
made
strategy.
it the perfect hat
It has a static grip. It's perfect.
And I shaved my head this morning to be on your show because I couldn't be on your show with stubble on my head. But I left hair as well, so I had double grip.
It.
Exactly.
Wow. Fellow bald man, I can appreciate that. If I'd shave my head and have to put on a racing helmet 2 days later, it's never coming off.
Yeah.
Thing is stuck. It is Velcroed to my dome. I've wrecked helmets like that. It stinks. I go through helmets way faster than that.
So what veteran car are you going to get now?
Well, I thought about this because about halfway through the drive, I said, I think I should buy one of these cars.
And then by the end of the drive, I said, why would I buy one when I can just call Donald and drive the museum cars anytime I want? It's like having a friend with a boat versus buying a boat. That's the friend with the boat is enough. And you know where I live. I mean, not exactly, but these cars would not be good in Los Angeles. They're great here. They're because the traffic moves at a speed appropriate to the vehicle. They're great for these type of events, but they don't have a veteran car tour in LA yet.
No, they don't. Although the funniest thing is that I remember Jay saying all the time that he would often listen to the traffic reports in the morning and hope for traffic. Then he'd take one of his little Detroit Electric or Baker Electrics out and drive it from his house to the studio because the traffic's moving at 20 miles per hour, so it was perfectly fine for it.
I
just
bet.
Go on, drive 3 exits, get off.
Did Wayne's Baker Electric finish?
It did, yes.
did.
And he had, that was another thing. I'm sure that you probably talked about this when you spoke to him, but I had to hand it to Wayne too because I love veteran cars, again, because of the fact that everything we have in cars today, with the exception of the electronics, was invented before World War I. We've just been refining it. And so Wayne did something which is absolutely cutting edge. He did a hybrid veteran car tour. He had a gas-powered Oldsmobile and the Baker Electric. So he was actually hybrid gas and electric. I suggested to him that what he should do is do 3 miles in the Oldsmobile, swap over to the Baker, do 3 miles on that, and swap back over. So he would switch back and forth between power plants, but he decided not to do that.
No, he was driving the Oldsmobile, and then he had a film crew driving the electric car, which is actually kind of like what you would do today if you were filming.
Yeah, that's pretty
filming
cool.
one car to another. That makes sense. But the gas car did not finish.
Correct.
He was down, and it was overheating or something. But I'm glad I didn't see the electric car come in by the time we left, so they may have been a little slower than us. But
He came in. The electric car came in the other entrance because they were doing a battery swap mid event.
Right.
Swap.
Yeah, range anxiety.
Exactly.
is a thing.
They never tested the actual range of the car, so they thought we could probably get away with 25 miles, but 50 is probably pushing it.
And
Just drop a couple
was that
Optimas in
accurate,
there.
you think? Oh, they didn't die, right?
They didn't die.
Oh,
no,
they didn't
no.
die.
They
Okay,
had battery when they got to the lunch stop. So.
Yeah. All right, cool. It's a really neat thing because, when we're used to seeing electric cars drive around now. And so it's not a weird thing. But when you see a veteran car, you expect to hear these chugga, 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 chugga. And so when you see a veteran car that is making no noise, that is actually quite strange.
Which is also, again, another commentary on what the automotive market was like before World War I, because it was almost equally divided between gasoline, internal combustion, steam, and electric.
And we talked to Wayne the other day about this. The electric cars were really marketed towards women who didn't want to get
Like Howard Hughes.
Yeah, didn't want to get dirty or smelly or break their arms on a crank start. Driving up to their friends' houses for tea, as it were. But it's really neat to see those things working. And driving around silently. It's eerie. It's eerie. Actually.
It is incredibly eerie. The Audrain a few years ago showed the collections there's always discussion about this, 1907 or 1908, depending. 1911 to 1912. Roush and Lang Electric Roadster. It's a really neat car, delivered new to Briggs Cunningham's mother. Totally original car. Actually, the leather fenders have been replaced.
Leather
fenders have been replaced. And showed it at the Pebble Beach Concours d'Elegance. It won third in its class in the alternative propulsion class. And I drove it on the tour. And speaking of my good friend and yours, Evan Ide, who's an absolute brilliant sort of veteran car whisperer, he was also displaying a car for Rob Kaufman, our friend, actually an 1894, I believe, De Dion tricycle. All original thing. And so I said, well, obviously, we're not going to get into this electric vehicle and drive it all the way down to Big Sur. It's not going to happen. Said, no. With the really early cars, you just drive a little loop inside Pebble Beach, and then when everybody else peels off to go over to Highway 1, you just come back to the lodge. I said, okay, great. So I'm driving around, waving at people through the 17-mile drive and having this great time gliding along in this electric car. And I see they're all going out, and I turn, and I don't see Evan. Now, we'd passed Evan before on the 17-mile drive, but then I began to hear reports of him on the Bixby Bridge, and he went all the way down to Big Sur in that thing back. I hated him. He made me look like a fool.
Did you get DQ'd for not doing
I did not, actually, because he just got
the rule was
extra.
he was being accurate about the rule. He just then went for it.
He just went for it.
That's a move.
But, that's how he is.
That's
how he rolls.
Where do you think they're going to do the tour this year? You think it's going to, because there's some washouts.
Well, there's always a challenge with the routing. My fear is that they'll put that loop back in where they go up through Pasadena and all of that, which is the automotive torture chamber killer.
Yeah, it's really steep and windy.
Really steep and windy. And again, another story about old cars and the progression of technology.
Guys, got to take one more quick break because the Smoking Tire is supported by Tinker. Tinker's a new mobile app which offers one-on-one live help for auto DIYers and lets them work with Tinker's certified automotive experts instantly via live video chat for quick answers for all your car topics. It's like having a pro mechanic in your pocket for all those burning car questions. Whether you're a seasoned car hobbyist with a weekend build or just trying to save some time and money doing some auto repairs yourself, Tinker's got you covered. All of the Tinker's experts are vetted. The app is currently available for download in the Apple App Store. I am personally bad at wrenching. You don't want me wrenching. But if there's an expert there helping, and I have the confidence to do it right because someone's telling me what right is, then I am good. That's why Tinker is perfect for me. If I had to fix something, I would go straight to Tinker and have someone help me get through it. If you're trying to avoid the mechanic and getting a big bill when the aftermarket headlights you ordered and installed aren't working, Tinker can shed some light onto that. Head over to the Apple App Store right now and download the Tinker app. It's like having a pro mechanic in your pocket. Now, back to the show.
In the collection is one of my favorite cars, a 1916 Packard I-25 Twin 6. Amazing car. First 12-cylinder production car. And it is a car that really rolls. The Audrain showed it at Pebble, and I drove it on the tour. And, of course, the whole thing's got rear brakes only. Nice. And it's a fast car. And so they said, just be very judicious in the application of the foot brake and use the hand brake to slowly bring the car to a stop. And so we're driving through the Pasadena Loop, and we're coming down this long hill with a 90-degree right-hand turn at the end, and people lined up all the way across the bottom. And I just applied the brakes and gently, got this, lock up the rear wheel. Said, okay, here we go. And so I gently released the brakes and released my own personal ABS here in this 1916 car, and got to the bottom and said, well, we're going as slowly as we're going to go. And here we go. Yank the wheel over. The car does this. Keeps going. Said, okay, I won't do that again.
Yeah, sketchy.
Until I'm on the Pacific Coast Highway, headed down to Big Sur, and in front of me is Harry Yagi in the Mormon Meteor, the wonderful Duesenberg land speed record car.
Crazy car.
But he's not driving fast enough. So I pass him on the Pacific Coast Highway in my 1916 Packard. I thought, that was really not the smartest thing in the world to do. But I got away with it, so it was fine.
It's funny you bring that up because we learned yesterday that in veteran cars, there actually aren't laws anymore. I believe that one should not make a pass on a double yellow line, and yet I did that 3 times yesterday in a 1902 car because it just seemed like the right. Because I had momentum and I wasn't about to give it up.
Right.
You don't want to lose momentum.
It takes so long to get up to speed.
Exactly, and your argument, of course, in court is, but Your Honor, in 1902, there were no double yellow lines, so the car does not recognize them.
Period laws.
Exactly.
You can always say no brakes, although our car had a slightly cheater set of Willwood rear brakes that were added later, which I was very thankful for.
Your car also has seat belts. I don't know
Which
if you
we
use
did not
them.
use.
Yes,
No,
exactly.
I don't trust that.
No.
I want to be out of that car if it flips over.
Again, back to the exiting the vehicle question.
But we had a great moment where we passed the other curved dash holds, and it was a long left-hander. We had a lot of visibility, and he moved over a little bit, and we start passing him, and then in the distance, an oncoming car appears. And as we're passing this guy, I look over at him, and he gives a face of like, and now you know. Like it was clear he had done what we were doing, and he had learned the lesson that we were learning. And he's like, and now you get to deal with that.
Yeah. And although many people were happy to see us that day, the girl in the Jetta coming the other way was not. She was pissed.
Oh, well, it takes a certain sense of humor. And I love being here in Newport, in this area, because they've gotten so used to the car crazies here that people generally, if they're confronted with an old car that's blocking traffic in some way, will usually give you a wave and get out their phone to take a picture rather than giving you rude hand gestures or running off the road.
Yeah, although we didn't cause any traffic on the bridge this time, when we were coming back south over the bridge, there were people causing traffic going north, and the people that they were holding up seemed to be having a good sense of humor about the situation, and they were not mad.
I've done, as you have, lots of events around the country and around the world, and one of the most challenging events is actually doing the Mille Miglia in Italy, because 3/4 of the people that you encounter on the road really love it and say, yes, forza, forza, die. The other people say, who are these expletives deleted, and why are they here blocking my way when I'm going to the grocery store? And they will deliberately do things to put you in harm's way, and it's really scary.
Yeah, I've heard it's a little nuts.
That's like Baja 1000. Most of the people love it.
Yeah.
But people put booby traps in the middle of the race, the roads, and they have to. That's why they pre-run it, because they're pulling out, rebar and all kinds of things that people just drop in the middle to try to upset a truck.
So sketchy.
Yeah.
Here you are.
Yeah.
So
welcome to our land.
Yeah, right. So I mean, we had a fabulous time this year. It was a great group. The car was great. I mean, it was the route was beautiful. It was a ton of fun. Other than just trying to get more people out here, where can this event go? Like, what is the future of this thing?
Well, it certainly is going to be, this is our 3rd annual event. It's certainly going to be an annual fixture. We're looking at slightly tweaking the route for next year. We don't want it to be too long. The thing that we chatted with a lot of people who have got lots of experience with veteran cars before we started the first one, and they all said that it needed to be challenging enough so that people got something of an adventure out of it, but not so challenging that people thought, okay, I'll never do that again, or it's frightening or dangerous. So we don't want to do that. We do want to make it slightly longer and try to find more of the sort of quiet 2-lane roads as opposed to the 4-lane places. And also with more cars and dividing the cars perhaps by horsepower class. So starting off the early cars first, and then 15 or 20 minutes later, starting the big cars.
Yeah, reverse grid.
Exactly. And the big cars will catch up to the small cars in 15 minutes.
Yeah.
But that'll also be something which will be great, because on the road, you'll see all the cars together at a point on the road, which could be a really neat thing. And we don't want it to ever, God forbid we should get the success of the London to Brighton, where you have 400 cars doing this. That's not what we really want it to be, because it's also a very, shall I say, Audrain event, because it's about people getting to know each other, talking to each other, spending time looking at the cars. And what we'd really like to do is to get the community more involved in it. We had a great number of people out by the side of the road waving and taking pictures, and lots of little kids and all that, which is fantastic. We want to have another moment of public engagement besides when we start out and when we stop at the end of the day. So have something else in the middle of the day where public can really interact with the cars and really get to talk to people.
It's a good idea.
It is. And I think I don't want to sound like an old guy here, but like there's going out and driving your cars, there's collecting cars, but a car collection can actually get overwhelming, provided, of course, one has the resources to collect cars in the first place, and you don't have that many places to go.
Right.
Like, we were just over at one of the main benefactor of the Audrain's place. He's got all these cars. And I'm like, where is this dude going?
with all these cars. What do you do? You know, but these, whether it's the Mille or the California or Colorado Grand or those type of events that where you go, I'm gonna buy a car just to do this thing. It actually, particularly because you can get a veteran car for very reasonable amounts of money, in the grand scheme of cars, you know, it actually becomes kind of appealing to the more things you can do with these cars, the more reason people will have to keep them on the road.
Well, there are two things, Matt, that you brought up that I think are very important to talk about. One is that I have noticed, and I think the rest of the world has noticed as well, that collecting has moved far more towards the experiential side than the contemplative side. People don't want to buy a car to look at. They want to buy a car that they're going to drive, they're going to have fun with. In answer to your question about some of the collections around here, one of the things that we do here at the Audrain, and again about you coming to drive cars, is that, you know, on the Audrain Museum network, we post 2 driving videos a week. So I spend a lot of my time driving cars. And one of the things that all the cars in the Audrain collections are all drivable, and they're all meant to be used and driven. Do they get out enough? No. So you have to come and visit more often. Do not consider that an invitation. I think that the idea of using the cars and experiencing them in that way has become more and more important to people. And one of the other reasons why we started this veteran car tour and also structured it the way we did was because the London to Brighton is strictly for 1904 and older. The market reflects that because the price differential between an identical car built in 1904 and one built in January, literally, that's how the Veteran Car Club dates it. If your car is a model that was introduced in 1904 and was built in January 2nd, 1905, you are out, sorry. And so the price differential can be 100% between a 1904 and a 1905. But they're incredibly usable pre-1909, 1910 cars that need to be used and seen, and people need to be able to enjoy them in a way that they can't with the London to Brighton. Yeah. So why not offer them the opportunity to do that?
Yeah. I'd like to see it be a touring event. I think you should do another one on the West Coast.
I think it'd be fantastic. We talked about where you're going to store the veteran car that you're going to buy very shortly. In your new garage facility that you're opening in Santa Barbara.
Yeah, well, so now that I know a bunch of the restoration guys that are out here are actually from California, I know someone who can work on them. I can't work on these cars. I can't work on anything.
Well, you see, now that's the other thing you asked about working on cars. I'm not a mechanic. But the thing that I also love about these cars is the fact that they are, as somebody explained once, blacksmith cars.
Yeah.
You don't actually have to know the intricacies of valve timing and all of this to work on one, especially if you get stuck. You say, okay, do I have spark? Do I have fuel?
Yeah.
It's like, okay, take this hammer, take this screwdriver, take this wrench.
Yeah.
Oops, sorry. and you're done.
Well, did you see us at the start yesterday? We at the start yesterday, and you'll see this. We went on a test drive on I guess it was Saturday, where we learned how to drive the car,
right.
And it took 30 seconds to learn how to drive the car. It's great, and it was running awesome, and it was fast. We get to the start line, and one of I wanted to like warm up the car. But one of the Audrain guys said, "Don't warm it up too much. We don't want it to overheat." So okay, so I ran it for 2 minutes and shut it off. Fine. We then go to leave. I start the car again, and it dies in 50 feet. And it was like, oh no, not again! Like, not this. And it didn't want to fire. It would start. It would run for 10 seconds and die again. I'm like, I can't believe this is happening again. Well, it turns out, like you said, fuel, air, spark. There was a second fuel cutoff switch. They only told me about one fuel cutoff switch. There was another one. We open it, the thing fires right up and it drives away. And we definitely would have won if we didn't have that happen. But yeah, I mean, yeah, it was literally like the most simple thing that actually got us going again. But I think next year we definitely need to do 2 cars. I think Zach needs his own car.
Agreed.
We'll divide you, however, into the low horsepower group and the high horsepower group.
Yeah. We will flip a coin to see who gets what. You know what I would like next year? I would like a tiller. I would like to drive a car with a tiller. I think that's the next level of weird. I've done hand clutch, I've done inverse pattern shifter, I've done band brakes. You know, tiller is the next level of weird.
And then you're at horse.
Yeah. Is there? I mean, you know, everything has a sort of learning curve. What to you is the hardest car to drive that requires full concentration all the time?
Definitely tiller.
Tiller?
Definitely tiller. And they say this is very interesting because the Roush & Lang electric roadster is tiller steering. The Curve Dash Olds is tiller steering. And the Curve Dash is much, much harder to drive because it's much faster than the Roush & Lang. The Roush & Lang gives you a little bit of time to actually say, oh, this is what I'm going with this. And, of course, the trickiest thing is having a passenger, because when you make a left-hand turn, all of a sudden your passenger is not literally your co-pilot. It's like, pardon me, I need to go over here. And so if you don't have enough room, and the wheel response with the tiller is instant.
Yeah.
So
it is one-to-one.
It's one-to-one.
Yeah.
You can't, I mean, everybody is taught, the first high-performance driving class or racing class is the car will go where you look.
Yeah.
And so if you're driving a car with a tiller and you do this, the car's over there.
Yeah.
It's there. It's gone, you know, before you know it. And so you find yourself doing this sort of strange crab walk correction thing for the first mile and a half that you drive it.
Yeah. I actually have yet to drive anything that's harder than a Model T. To me, Model Ts are hard. With the hand throttle and your feet that aren't doing throttle things, to me, that's actually quite difficult.
Well, it's interesting because the Model S that I drove yesterday has similar controls to the T, but God bless Henry, he changed the controls, which were, I can't say more normal, but the Model S has a wheel brake,
Okay.
a transmission brake, and then the third pedal is reverse.
Okay.
And so you start the car with the Spark Advance, which is on the right, and the throttle on the left.
Okay.
And then you have the engagement for the gears on the long lever. So neutral's in the middle.
Okay. So instead of the pedal one, it's on a lever.
Correct.
That's better.
You advance the throttle and pull it back while bouncing, like bouncing a clutch to get the clutch take-up point.
Yeah.
Making sure that you give it enough throttle so that you can engage low gear, but not too much, because then all of a sudden it's roaring along. And then you have to leave it in neutral and push it forward like this, which is why actually I just did this. I went to the gym this morning. I am so sore,
Like
my
tendon.
forearm, because like,
Do you have to then hold it in high gear?
no,
Well,
you just have to
stays in
place
high
it
gear.
in high gear. But then the way you stop the car, slow it down, you can't just stamp on the brake, because that's not going to do much to you. So you bring it slowly back to neutral, reduce the throttle so the car slows down, then put it into low gear to use the engine braking to keep you doing this. And so you're thinking about all this stuff. On the Model T, he reverses the throttle and the advance to the opposite sides of the wheel.
Yeah. It's
For no apparent reason.
But what you've just described is much harder than what I had to do yesterday to drive the Yale.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Driving the Yale is an accelerator pedal, a hand clutch where you engage it forward until it catches, and then you lock it into first. And then you just lift off the throttle, push it forward again. Now you're in second. That's it. And the brakes are just a pedal. I mean, it's actually much easier.
But the Yale in 1902 cost, I think it was $1,400 or $1,500.
It was $1,500 in 1902.
The Model S was a $495 car.
Yeah. So $1,800 in 1902 was about $54,000 today.
Yeah.
So it was still it was pretty expensive. People made less money
Correct.
then. So it was
But people who
quite
made money had lots more of it.
Right. Yeah. It's an amazing experience. I mean, learning to drive this stuff, and I want more people to be interested in it, because, you know, there's a lot of ways to like learn history and experience history, but to actually operate history is so rewarding.
It's, to me, overwhelming. I say this all the time. When I was a little boy, I dreamt about time machines. Not ever imagining that I would actually grow up to literally use a time machine. You drive that, I mean, regardless of what I was wearing, you are literally using this object 120 years after it was built in the manner in which the maker intended it to be used. We can't use our cell phones in 3 years.
Yeah.
There's nothing else. Like, most people won't fly a plane from 100 years ago or 50 years ago. And there's, maybe boats, like we talked about that yesterday. Maybe
Yes.
there's a boat out there that
there's
stays, but
vintage boating, I
very
suppose.
few things, though, very few machines that you can still operate that are that old, that aren't sitting in a museum out of touch.
And with boats and planes, with apologies to boat enthusiasts and airplane enthusiasts, by necessity, vintage airplanes are a facsimile of a vintage airplane. They have to be completely rebuilt in order to be airworthy.
Yeah.
And I've seen some of the restorations on some of the great commuter yachts, which I love, from the 1920s and 1910s. But they basically take them down to the keel, and everything that you're riding in is brand new.
Yeah.
With a car, that's not the case. It's amazing how much originality is still in the cars, and they're not modified to make them smoother or more powerful. You don't see. That's the other thing I love about this community. You might see slight modifications that the manufacturer may have incorporated into production later, but you don't see veteran resto mods.
Yeah.
Other than our Willwood brakes. Besides that, that's a safety
That
feature.
was
You're not
feature.
going to update the power plant, because that would completely transform it and make it terrifying. And you probably can't modify the suspension in a way that would change it to feeling modern. You can't put coilovers on the thing we drove, and you wouldn't want to try to.
Yeah,
that's a really good point.
It is amazing to actually see how well they work.
Yes.
Other than, some broke down and whatever, and that may have just been what happened back then, and that may be a result of it sitting or not being, prepped appropriately, but overwhelmingly reliable things.
Well, reliability is also something which has progressed dramatically as well. You read an owner's manual for a car from the 1950s, and the oiling and lubrication requirements are things that we would never put up with today.
Yeah.
Today, in fact, if you wanted to do when we were growing up, it was like you change the oil in your car every 2,000 miles, and the car will last 300,000 miles. Today, the manufacturers forbid you to change the oil. If you change the oil, then we're not going to honor your warranty, because it's not to be changed for 10,000 miles, and even then, it's like it's an amazing thing to experience. And we were going to talk about a recent acquisition, which I may have made at the Bonhams auction on Saturday. But I was reading the manual for this recent acquisition, for one of my recent acquisitions. I bought 3 things at the auction. And it required that all of the chassis parts be lubricated every 50 hours. And if you lived in a dusty place or a rainy place, daily. I thought, okay, yeah, fine.
Daily.
Daily.
Not going to happen.
What type of car requires this level of chassis service?
Not exactly a car. And this is a real scoop for the smoking tire.
Please.
It's a major scoop.
Okay.
Internationally, people have been waiting for this moment, and I'm not exaggerating.
Okay.
I bought a 2-wheeled vehicle.
Oh, is this your first one?
My very first 2-wheel vehicle.
Very first
Penny farthing?
motorcycle.
It's a motor scooter, but that's fine.
Okay.
1946 Cushman motor scooter.
Oh, cool.
From the auction.
That's fun.
All original thing. It's absolutely astonishing.
Do you plan to ride it?
I will ride it. I will ride it once to
I know.
I saw this at the auction.
I saw this
I
thing
saw
at
it
the
sitting
auction
there.
yesterday. It looks like something called a Cushman. You would look great on this.
I already have the outfit to wear.
Yeah.
You only buy things that you have an outfit to drive or ride.
Sure.
I know that's your policy.
100%.
I will make a video riding it.
Okay.
And then it will become garage sculpture.
Do you have a motorcycle license? Do you need one for this? How many cc's is it? Is it 50 cc?
The answer is yes. It requires a motorcycle license. And beyond that, on advice of counsel, I'm not aware that was a requirement. Much like the double lines in 1902.
Not yet. Didn't exist.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter.
Did they have motorcycle licenses when these came out? Probably not. There you
No,
go. You are a time traveler,
Exactly.
so
Yeah.
operate as such.
That's fun. That's a fun little thing.
Yeah.
Okay, that's one thing. What else did you
That was
buy?
one thing. The other thing was we were talking about the fact that manufacturers built engines and they would sell them to various manufacturers. And I have a tendency to like sort of automobilia and desk stuff. My office upstairs, you actually can't walk in or actually use. And they had there the neatest paperweight, which is a miniature of a Didion single-cylinder engine.
Okay, that's cool.
I bought that.
Okay.
And then the thing for which I required the station wagon to pick up this morning was something which is incredibly neat. And I'm shocked that, well, I'm not shocked. It was very much the instance of being in the right market, being in the wrong market at the right time. One of the things in the sale was the signage from the pit wall, the as they call it in Formula One, the Pratt perch, from the 2004 Ferrari Formula One team. Scuderia Ferrari. It was a non-tobacco race, so it did not have Marlboro on it, and it had the prancing horse insignia with the slashed lines.
Oh, cool.
And I picked that up for my garage.
Just like the pit wall sign?
Yeah, the pit wall, the pit perch sign.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's great.
Absolutely fantastic.
What was the top seller at the Bonhams auction on Saturday? There was cars and there was automobilia.
You've asked me a question I don't think I can answer. I don't recall.
Oh, okay.
I don't recall.
Was it a success?
It was a successful auction, yes. They're second with us, and they're going to come back again next year. I did not stay for the automotive portion for two reasons. One, I was afraid that I would actually buy something else. So I thought being out of the room is a better plan of action for that, since I have no self-control whatsoever, which is why I encourage other people to buy things so I can live vicariously through them.
Yeah.
And I can't wait to go shopping for your veteran car starting next week. I'm so excited.
I like how aggressively you're
Ben
pushing
from
this.
the Audrain Museum said they bought a lot of stuff for the museum.
Yes, a lot of signs and
Yeah. He said it was great because it was already hanging on the wall. He said, yeah, just leave it there. Save on shipping. It's perfect.
There are a couple of moments when Rupert Banner, when he's auctioneering, he said, "I'll pay for the shipping on that." And he said, okay, Ben's bidding.
Yeah, it was a really, really great weekend, a lot of fun, and I mean, my suggestion would be to make the event bigger, not just in terms of getting more cars, but like more things,
More
like
activities.
more
Yes.
stuff. I mean, like you've done such a great job with the concourse week, where you've got stuff happening kind of all over town for a few days. I'd love to see you. I mean, you could combine a veteran car tour with Concours Week. Would be fun. I mean, I know.
Lot of work.
Yeah, you guys. We were commenting. There's probably there was like 30 cars in the event.
Yes.
Right. There was probably 30 drivers and 30 passengers and probably 50 employees required, because there's 4 support trucks and the volunteers holding the road signs. And I mean,
people helping us getting our car going, and then people helping
Exactly.
direct traffic a little bit.
It's all hands.
Yeah,
it's all hands for sure. So I sympathize, but it is, as a participant, it is unbelievably fun.
You just made me think of something that we could probably add. And again, I don't want to advertise something that may not happen, but they do these wonderful, sort of the automotive equivalent of a canine agility trial.
Oh.
Where you have cones set up and you have to bring the car forward, maintain an average speed for a short time, then back up and turn around. And in these cars, it's not that easy.
That would be
Veteran
fun.
Jim
How do the
Gallagher. A lot of
clutches
fun.
hold up
Yeah.
to that stuff? Like how do these, like you said, Jay would drive in stop and go traffic? Is that hard on these cars, or is it just about how you?
Well, exactly. You can't use the brakes, so that's the trick there. So that's why an event like this would not have a lot of. It would be you and cones.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't actually run into somebody else's car, so it wouldn't be that
It'd be
tragic.
fun.
That'd be a really funny competition.
It would be fun because you could have, you could do it in the tennis stadium,
Right.
and have like spectators. It's like right there on the lawn.
And it would give that edge of competition that
Yes.
the aggressive West Coast entrants really
Which we
thrive
definitely
on.
don't do when we're on the street. We are definitely not competing. It's not a race.
It's not a race. Not a race. No matter what happened and how you passed. Not a race.
Four. We finished fourth. That's the most important. We've got some questions for Donald from our Patreon. Of course, if you want to ask questions of our live people, not for you guys sitting here. We got a mic for you people too, if you want to get in the game. But patreon.com/the Smoking Tire Podcast. We've got Prashant says, Donald, when did you discover your personal style?
It was very early on. I've got photographs of myself at about 3 years old, and I'm just absolutely cutting it. My mother used to sew all of my clothes. She used to make my suits until I was about 8 years old. It embarrassed me terribly when I was that old, but I was very, very happy. You'll relate to this. I got my first store-bought suit from Barney's in New York when I was 11 years old for Easter. I was just absolutely over the moon. And so, yeah, clothes have always been an important part of my life. I have no idea how or why that happened.
You wear them well. Greg, we covered his question. Ivan says back in the day there was no standard way of doing most things on cars. But what's something of current car design and technology that you wish was brand specific and non-standard?
Oh, well, I think that one of the things is that I think there are probably, I'm going to get this wrong, but there are probably, I think, 2 manufacturers that make all the steering wheels for all the cars in the world today. And if you look at them closely, they're almost identical. And cars used to really show their expression through their steering wheels, and we've lost that. Yes, granted, it's nice to have an airbag.
Yeah, there's a safety feature there.
But nonetheless, it's. I think we've really lost a lot with the standardization of the steering wheel.
Mm-hmm. A steering wheel says, I once sold a car because I didn't like its steering wheel, and it turns out I should have just gotten like a different steering wheel. And that it turns out that would have actually been an option because the manufacturer offered 2 different steering wheels, and I just bought the car with the wrong one.
I don't like the color of this room. Sell the house.
It was really stupid. It was very bad, but it's enough to make you sell a car.
Yeah, it's a funny thing too. You know, I, like many people, prize originality in cars, but I also am old enough to remember that one of the first things that you did, one of the first things I did, I bought my new 1987 Alfa Milano. The week I had it, the second week I had it, I bought an aftermarket steering wheel for it, aftermarket shift knob. I mean, all the things you use to personalize the car. And I can just see someone today saying, wow, there's a really nicely preserved Milano. Shame it doesn't have the original steering wheel.
Yeah, that sometimes they look weird with the other ones, but I've changed steering wheels in a lot of cars, and I understand why one would do that. I don't know. I mean, another standard thing that I would change?
Well, it's also tricky today, even though people do it.
I'd go with headlights.
I was about to say headlights.
I'd say headlights. Because, I mean, of course, suppliers supply, and they can only part share so much and stuff, but I think you start to just see too many similarities, and you go, wait, I've seen those on something expensive before, and now they're on something cheap, or vice versa.
Well, it's also one of those things where designers, and I've got lots of friends who are designers, so I can't slag any of them, but the manufacturers try to express a brand identity through the headlights and the resting running lights, which is slightly annoying at times as well.
Now they're doing it with LED brows.
Right. Exactly.
That's the new thing.
It's the thing.
Well, the problem is now that a lot of cars are designed by computer, you know, there is actually a most aerodynamic shape. And so whether it's a sedan or a crossover or whatever, if you cut off the front and rear fascias, the in-between starts to look very same.
Well, that's the other thing, that it is sort of standard accepted knowledge that aerodynamics drive design. But then you look at a car like the mid-1960s Alfa Giulia, which is an incredibly aerodynamic design, but it looks nothing like today's cars. Incredibly aerodynamic, incredibly stable. And do you really need to? It's like those, and again, I'm going to insult lots of people who have track day cars that they only drive in the street that have immense wings and generate 14,000 tons of downforce, none of which happens at 40 miles per hour. Thank you very much. So, like, you know, do you need to go to that length to get that level of performance? Could you add a little bit more individual style within the safety parameters and just, you know, shave off a half of, 2/3 of a gallon of mileage? I mean, really, who cares?
I agree with you. I do. Except for pedestrian safety stuff, I do agree with you.
We had an exhibition. As a matter of fact, there was an exhibition on lighting. It's called, I can't remember the name of the exhibition, so I've just been fired. It'll come to me. But it was all about the development of lighting. And we had here parked in this corner of the gallery, the museum, a 918 and a McLaren 720. And it was amazing that you could tell the basic shape of the front lid was identical because they had to conform with the European pedestrian safety laws. You had the exact same angle from the front bumper to the windshield. They thought, okay, now make a car look completely different.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm pro pedestrian safety. I lament that position that cars start to look the same.
When the light is red, pedestrians should stay out of the streets. That's why they have red and green lights.
Yeah.
And by the way, when there is a pedestrian walkway where the pedestrian has the right of way, we as drivers should come to a complete stop and let them cross the street and not be jerks about it. But when people should stay on the sidewalk, they should stay on the sidewalk to not ruin the line of the hood of my Alfa 33 Strarale.
All right.
I think the event was shining bright.
Shining bright. Thank you. Advances in automotive lighting. Haha. I remember the rest of it.
Christian wants to know how you like your Ferrari Roma,
I love my Ferrari Roma.
even though it meets pedestrian standards in Europe.
Even though it meets pedestrian standards in Europe, because the front end is really pointy. So if I can really catch somebody at the right angle.
You can launch someone into the
over
air.
the car. No, seriously. I absolutely love the car. It is, without a doubt, my favorite new car I've ever bought. It was also the realization of a lifelong dream. I thought, you know what? Once in my life, I need to buy a new Ferrari. And the entire experience of owning it has been absolutely amazing. I saw the car for the first time at the factory in Maranello, and it was a dream come true. It's one of the few times in my life, and people who know me know this doesn't happen very often, I was actually speechless. And I love the car because it also delivers something that I like to find in cars, which is driving enjoyment at 45 miles per hour and at speeds that are above 45 miles per hour. Exactly. Yeah. Wherever they may be.
Car to drive
You know, there's
slowly.
freeways out there. You can go. You could say 75, and that'd be okay.
Yeah.
Yes. Up to miles per hour.
Yeah.
Yes. The car is enjoyable and stable and delightful. And my intention is, my only regret about the car is that I don't have enough miles on it yet. I picked it up in August of July 2022, and I only have 5,800 miles on it so far. I need to get out and drive it.
That's not terrible, but you need to do better.
I need to get out and drive it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you got a lot of things to drive. So
Yeah, I know. I
I
need to drive
understand.
my own car. Damn
But
it.
we need. Did you drive it to Pebble last year?
Yes, I had. I didn't drive it too. I'd love to drive that car across the country. I think it'd be a wonderful cross-country car.
Good for that.
I had it out there, so I drove it all month. Yeah. So
It's
that
a lovely
was fun.
car. The Roma's good. They're very good to drive. I've been trying to get a Roma Spider as a press car, but they're stringing me along.
Yeah, no. They'll wait till production ends.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, you know how Ferrari press fleets
Absolutely.
work. We're done
Absolutely.
selling these. Sure, you can try one.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. That's exactly right. Anyone from our studio audience want to have a go at the mic? Anyone? Going once? Going twice?
Remember, if you don't ask a question now, the next time I see you, you cannot ask me a question.
Ever.
I know that you had it and you didn't ask it.
John's ice cold.
Oh, yeah. I have a question.
You can just shout it out. You don't have to come get the mic if you want. You have a dedicated track car. Okay. 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 It's not good on the street. Got it. Uh-huh. Okay.
Yep.
What year? 17.
Okay. So the question is, do you buy the highest mileage Alfa Giulia Quadrifoglio in the country? Oh. Uh-huh. Do you sell your C6 Lingenfelter Corvette? Okay. No. That sounds terrible. Oh, boy.
Oh.
Do you turn a C6 Lingenfelter into an Alfa Giulia and a C5 Z06?
The answer to that question, as far as I'm concerned, is absolutely. Because one of the things that I believe in very strongly is building collections, no matter if they're 2 cars, 3 cars, 4 cars, 20 cars, that are horses for courses, different driving experiences. So by doing that, you still have the Z06 driving experience, and you've now added the Alpha.
Yeah.
So
I
you've
agree.
doubled your fun.
And the Alpha is so pretty. Even if it breaks, which it will, you can just look at it. That's a car I could just look at all day.
I have, of course, a 2017 Alfa Giulia TI, which I bought new, which has not given me one bit of trouble the entire time I've owned it.
I've heard that about. I've heard the TIs are fairly
better.
bulletproof.
Yeah.
But also, this gentleman mentioned something which is very important. It's a very high mileage. In order to get to that high mileage, it had to have been maintained. I would always choose a high mileage car with a great service record than an undriven car with no service record.
Sure.
The car will actually be able to be operated.
That's true, but there's also a middle ground where you can get a car that is reliable and has made it a great distance without requiring lots of maintenance. So that is
somebody
the third
else do
option.
the maintenance, though.
I think you guys are selling me on this solution, this 2-car solution.
Yeah.
I was not sold on it, but maybe. I think they're definitely different driving experiences. When the Alpha works, it's nice. It is pretty nice to drive.
Sounds great, yeah.
And the flavor of driving a fast C5 versus a C6
It's the same.
pretty
It's the
similar.
same. Yeah, it's just like one rattles a little and one rattles a lot.
Yeah.
I had a C5. It rattles. It's made of Legos. But they go really fast, and if it's a track car, like, you won't hear the rattling anyway.
Exactly. If you're listening to the rattling, something else is going on.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. Yeah, go for it. Yeah, what's the worst thing that happened? You lose all your money. I mean, it's like, you can make more.
While having fun.
Yeah.
That's all that
the
counts.
worst thing that happens is it's an absolute nightmare. You lose all your money, and you go, Donald Osborne told me to do this.
While on the Smoking Tire podcast.
Yeah.
So.
And then all you have left is scooter money.
Yeah,
Which is
exactly.
you buy one of those.
And pretty soon I know where you buy a 1946 Cushman cheap.
Right.
Not so cheap, once the provenance kicks in.
Right.
Okay. Actually ridden by somebody who's never ridden a 2-wheel vehicle in his life.
Oh, man.
And survived.
God help you.
Exactly.
I learned to drive to ride motorcycles by riding a very slow scooter. It is the right way to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. I got a ticket.
How long ago was it?
Like 17 years ago.
Okay.
I got a ticket rolling through a stop sign on a 50cc Vespa that was about 40 feet from my front door. And I got pulled over in my own driveway. And the stop sign was in the middle of an uphill, and
I'm not stopping.
Had I stopped, I would not have been able to get going again because that's 3 horsepower and I'm fat. And I tried to explain that to the police officer, who didn't care. At this point, I learned that it was my girlfriend's scooter. I learned that the insurance had lapsed 6 days ago, and I got a ticket for no insurance, which was $2,500. And you can't get out of that. It's an objective. It's valid.
Did you
or not.
say, excuse me, will you take the scooter?
Yeah. I broke up with the girl shortly after, and that was that.
Did she take the scooter?
It was her scooter. It was her scooter.
Well, you should have seized it.
I should have seized
you
it.
Bought it in effect.
Yeah. That would have been would have made a nasty breakup much smoother, I'm sure, if I tried to steal her scooter. But now I have a Vespa now that I ride every day. That's my daily transportation in Los Angeles.
Really?
Yeah. It's a 300.
You
It's
are a very
fast
brave
Vespa.
man, though.
It's a fast Vespa, but it is.
Do you
a
find that
Vespa.
people actually notice that there's somebody there? That's my biggest fear.
Some do and others don't, but I find if you're not going to be very visible, being totally invisible is the next best thing because I can be gone before you even know. And when you're in a lime green Vespa, it's fairly not
visible.
like you're on and it's not like you're on some loud like Gixxer or something. People look at me and they go, his life probably sucks. Just let him go. They don't. It's not. I'm not trying to out macho somebody. They look like I'm delivering Chinese food or something.
So this is a question for you. You're a position on lane splitting then.
Incredibly pro lane splitting. I mean, I don't think it's wise to split lanes at like 100 miles an hour, but the general concept of lane splitting, I do think is safe and good.
I think a lot of motorcyclists in LA go beyond the maximum speed you're supposed to be lane splitting at,
Right.
and that is not good for them or for the cars that they're kind of zipping past.
Yeah.
But if you're in stop traffic, getting to the front so that you can't get rear-ended, getting to the front of that line, or just if stop and go on the freeway is going 12, then you should be able to just move past.
The only way I'm able to stay sane living in Los Angeles is by lane splitting when I have to go places at rush hour. Other than that, I'd lose my mind.
It is one of those things. I have lots of friends in Italy whose daily transportation are scooters
Yeah.
and small motorbikes. And I get why they do it because first of all, parking is a nightmare.
Yeah.
And, when you have to negotiate very narrow medieval streets, it's always better to do it on a scooter than in a new Porsche Carrera. But nonetheless, it's just so incredibly scary to me. Maybe because I'm just not a two-wheel guy. So
look, it's dangerous. Riding a motorcycle in a city is dangerous. I wear my jacket, my propper, my helmet. I wear gloves.
Yeah.
And if I'm on a real motorcycle, I'll wear the pants and the boots also.
Yeah.
But it's like with the veteran car, total focus. I don't put headphones in. I'm not listening to music. I'm not on a Bluetooth. I am 100% focused at where I'm going. It helps me learn the city too, because I don't have my phone mounted. I'll look and I'll go, okay, I go north on the freeway, I get off here, and then I make a left at this, and then I turn right, and it actually helps me learn how to get places without GPS and stuff like that. And
it's what people used to do when we had what were they called? Maps. That's right, maps.
Exactly.
You actually studied the map.
Exactly.
Said, okay, then. And again, my annoying brother, who's the pilot, also had this horrifying gift. He can go as a passenger, be driven someplace once, and he'll remember exactly how to get there.
I can do that too.
It's like, oh,
yeah, I can do that too.
I hate you.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay, fine. You're still my brother.
Listen, you hate me, please. I'm very hateable. Anyone else before we wrap this up? Going once? Going twice?
Last chance ever to ask me a question.
Sold. Donald's buying lunch for everybody. It's always a pleasure to be here at the Audrain with you guys. I love Newport. I love the clam chowder, the oysters,
So good.
and the people. And it's a surprising place to find as much car culture as we regularly find. I think people associate it with sailing and boats, but not necessarily cars so much. And yet there's an ever-expanding roster of automotive activities to do here.
I won't ruin your very neat wrap up, but I will say that nothing against Southern California, where I lived for a decade, but people think about Southern California as being the place for sort of car culture. And the car culture here in this part of New England is so incredibly passionate, so incredibly deep. People are really connected with their cars and want to come out and use them and meet other people and share what it is they have. It is astonishing. This is probably one of the most incredible, and this includes Italy and Southern California, places I've ever lived in terms of the energy of the car culture here. It's astonishing.
It's great. It's great. So next year, 2 veteran cars.
2 veteran cars.
So you heard it here, folks. And thank you to Donald and the Audrain team for having us. Everyone's always so kind. And we'll see the rest of you guys back in LA next week. Thanks, guys.
Thanks for